Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today I am delighted to welcome onto the show a new friend, Shaowei He, who is Director of China and Emerging Economy Centre at the University of Northampton. Shaowei, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, really, really good. Thank you for asking. Do you know what, Shaowei? I think you may have been the first guest in over 80 interviews who's asked me how I am. So thank you very much. That's not a good sign of everyone else that's been on. But anyway, Shaowei, we were introduced literally a week or so ago from also a new friend of our show, Adrian Price, who is a fellow associate professor at the University of Northampton. And so Adrian's show was aired, I think, a week or two ago, where we obviously got to talk about business, international business, and also sort of touching very briefly on China, for example, at which point he said, I need to get you on the show so we can do a China special talking about massive opportunity, massive growth possibilities, and basically how the businesses within the region that you and I are part of, which is Northamptonshire, Warwickshire, for example, could be and should be connecting with our international partners overseas, China, for example. So we can freestyle this. So let's talk about China and the opportunities. So, you know, what are the opportunities? Why are you so passionate about it? What should we be doing?
Right. Where should we start? Opportunities. Number one, China is a huge market, if not perhaps the biggest market. It's one of the biggest markets for almost everything. Particularly for products that's manufactured and produced and serviced in Western countries such as the UK. Mm. So we can list many products, luxury products, luxury cars, you know, and airplanes, so on and so forth. So that's number one. Number two, China is becoming a increasingly important hotspot for innovation. So for countries such as the UK attaches a huge importance to innovation. China is a potential partner that perhaps I wouldn't advise any UK governments or businesses to avoid. Number three, talking about innovation, I see China and the UK natural innovation partners. So the UK is very good at scientific discovery, while China is on the road of catching up in terms of science, but it's very good at using scientific technology knowledge to coming up with producing products for the real world. And that's something that perhaps the UK is lagging behind. And again, I see that that both countries are natural innovation partners. So huge opportunities, as far as I'm concerned, in almost each of every industry sectors that you can name off.
Okay, and so which is great and clearly very positive to hear. What's your role? So, you know, you're obviously at the University of Northampton, Associate Professor in International Business and obviously leading their sort of China department. But, you know, why are you doing this and how are you helping to facilitate, you know, constructive conversation and even connectivity?
Okay, to start with, so I'm an associate professor in international business. So I personally do research about Chinese investment into the UK, and in particular, I look at the impact of the Chinese acquisitions in the UK, how that impacts on the British businesses that were acquired by the Chinese. So the impact that I looked upon went beyond job creation, financial investment, but I wanted to look at, in particular, in terms of the innovative capabilities and competitiveness, what has happened once the British firms were acquired by the Chinese firms.
Okay.
So that is my role as a researcher. It is to understand, if you like, the impact of the rise of China and the Chinese firms and their internationalization.
Do you have any, just to butt in there, do you have any, forgive me, do you have any examples of that you can share, i.e. something that you've sort of researched and
Oh yeah, so I published a journal paper at a very at a top ranking business journal called Journal of World Business, and it is based on a case study of a Chinese firm taking over British semiconductor producer called Dynex in Lincoln. Now, the research that I have been doing demonstrated that yes, on one hand, the Chinese are coming to acquire the British firms to learn the new technologies, particularly in semiconductor component making. But also, at the same time, they brought in technology understandings so that the British firm, who previously didn't know how to produce their semiconductor components for the railway market, for example, and now they have the knowledge from the parent firm so that they can understand, how they could design and manufacture semiconductor components for the railway market, not just for the Chinese railway market, but for the global railway market now. And together now, the parent and the subsidiary firms, they are working now together and making inroads into electric vehicle sector now, and that's also very new to the British firm who, before the acquisition happened. So not just the Chinese coming to learn technology and know-how, but they also introduce new knowledge into the British firms so that they can further upgrade their capability and innovation, if you like. That's what I talked about earlier.
Fantastic. And what else are you doing to support sort of UK businesses and their sort of counterparts in China?
So I see my role as really as a cultural ambassador between the two countries, between the UK and China. So as I mentioned earlier, that I saw huge potential between the two countries. So I lead China and the Emerging Economy Center at the university. And really what we aim to do is to link together British institutions, firms with their Chinese counterparts. So to materialize many of the collaboration opportunities that I could only foresee. So an example is the work that I have been doing with Lincolnshire County Council. So I brought in, that was in 2015. I brought in a very senior delegation from Hunan province in China. So a province with 70 million population and with fast development pace, of course. Very good, very solid base in advanced manufacturing. So I brought in a senior delegation to Lincoln, and immediately that's followed up by a reciprocal visit from Lincolnshire County Council to Hunan province. And later on in 2018, both sides decided that they should form a formal sister regional relationship, and they signed a formal agreement. Now, the story after that is that then subsequently a direct flight was opened between London and the capital city of Hunan province, which many passengers, including myself and my family, benefited because Hunan is my home province.
Ah, great.
And also that contributed to a huge increase in terms of trade volume between Hunan and Lincolnshire and the wider UK. So to give you an example, the trade volume between Hunan province and the UK reached 1.4 billion US dollars, and that was a 112% increase from the previous year. So that's really, again, the potential is huge, but there are so many potentials and opportunities for businesses, for universities, for local authorities to make it happen.
And so my business, Longhurst, is part of the Silverstone Technology Cluster, which is located at the heart of British motorsport. So that's Silverstone and Silverstone Park. Are there equivalents of our technology cluster over in China? And if there are, presumably part of the objective here is to get them all talking and forming these similar relationships.
A very good point. My China and Emerging Economy Center is also a fellow member of STC. Now, again, this is something that I get very excited, but at the same time, perhaps also slightly disappointed. So talking about technology clusters in China, there are many, and one of the fast-moving ones is actually, is something that I found in my home province, the capital city of Changsha. Now, many of the businesses in STC, they are very, very interested in autonomous vehicle development, isn't it? Now, Changsha emerged, interestingly, from nowhere to be a front runner of development in terms of autonomous vehicle development. So the city managed to build a test site, China's most advanced test site for autonomous vehicle and wireless driving technologies in China. That was completed in 2018. In 2019, so giving them another year. So that site, by the way, was completed within a year. So giving them another year, so by the summer of 2019, the last time that I visited the city, they have already worked with more than 300 big players in autonomous vehicle driving. It's any autonomous vehicle development players that I can think of in China are already their commercial partners. They're already doing tests, all sorts of tests of all sorts of vehicles and drones, by the way, on the site. Now, that is a huge opportunity for my fellow businesses in STC. So I've been trying to broadcast this opportunity, but so far, I don't think that any UK, perhaps diplomats and businesses have visited that test site. That's an interesting development.
Well, so we need to be shouting a little bit more about that, and certainly having a conversation with Pim, who's the CEO of the cluster, and Roz, who's obviously commercial director of MEPC and Silverstone Park. Yeah, that's an unusual one. I can't believe that those conversations aren't happening.
It's perhaps, on one hand, that's perhaps partly that is due to the fact that, things in China are developing too fast. It's just, beyond the imaginations of really, many of our UK fellow citizens. So that's natural. So there are new opportunities emerging on a daily basis, but this is a huge one that I hope that some of our fellow STC members could grapple with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, well, clearly this podcast is part of that communication chain, right? So we will make sure it gets aired and re-aired and re-shared.
By the way, we do help to introduce Chinese businesses into the STC, by the way. So last year, along with PIM, that we introduced the delegation from Nanjing, so another very interesting city, huge
Yeah,
city.
I remember that happening. And has that progressed any further?
Well, I hope so. But I'm waiting for a follow-up course for for STC members.
Fine, understood. Shaowei, thank you. I mean, that's a lot of information, and clearly passionate about what you're doing. And you are right. There needs to be more communication, certainly amongst my fellow cluster members, about what's going on in China, and certainly be talking to you about connecting and creating those relationships. COVID's obviously been rubbish and a horrendous sort of experience for all of us, right? So we're 7 months in now to what was originally a full lockdown, and then we've been let free, and then and now it's sort of borderline going to be another sort of semi-lockdown to full lockdown, no doubt. How have you personally been, and how's the university been coping with this, and having to change how you deliver lectures and support students who themselves are clearly going through it themselves?
Now, obviously, this is a huge challenge for the university, for the university sector. But luckily, I think that our university, the University of Northampton, and that we are lucky enough, because that we already pioneered and experimented, if you like, the delivery of lectures and seminars, learning activities online before this happened.
Yeah.
So we are already familiar with, some of the technologies in, platforms in terms of how to do online teaching and learning. So in that sense, that we are in a better position than perhaps many other universities.
Yes.
So that's perhaps a comfort message. But of course, still, this is a huge challenge. With students in almost everywhere in the world, at different time zones. So even though that we are already familiar with the technologies and the platforms, still a huge challenge for the universities and the tutors and the students themselves, of course.
And how have you been personally? How have you found COVID? And how have you been keeping yourself active and mentally active?
Just muddling through, but I make sure that I do talk often to my little kids, so that they are okay. They could manage.
Yeah, understood. Post-COVID. So one of the final questions we've been asking on this COVID catch-up series is sort of post-COVID. Let's pretend it's 2021, and hopefully we've all had our vaccinations or otherwise. What are you personally looking forward to doing the most that perhaps at the moment you can't do?
Well, perhaps as my kids that said to me very often, Dad, when can we go back to China again? And so to resume international travel. So
yes.
Many of our projects are put on hold at the moment because of the restrictions of international travel. Wow. So I'm hoping that we're able to go back to the old normal. Hopefully, shortly. Fingers crossed.
Presumably, you've still got family in China.
Yes, I do have my mother and my sisters.
Okay, and how have they been coping with, obviously, the equivalent restrictions over there? And
they actually domestically in China that the restrictions have been relaxed. I don't think that you have big troubles now traveling inside China. So the challenge is the cross-border travel. So once you are in China, I don't think that you would have many difficulties.
Yeah, understood. Shaowei, I'm going to conclude with a final question. To this question, I've spent decades of my life traveling the world, speaking to gurus, learning from the best, so that I can, like Parkinson does, or we used to do on TV, I can ask people the challenging questions that get to the nub of what's really important, especially between UK and China relations. Shaowei, what is the king of crisps?
I can only well, let me confess that I've only lived in the UK for 18 years.
That's not enough to have eaten some crisps. Really.
So what I'm going to confess is that I'm not a big fan of crisps. The crisps that I like is actually the one, the vegetable crisps, with sweet potatoes and some vegetables inside. It's
Very
not
good.
potato.
We've had a number of people say a similar thing. So if it's not crisps, what's your sort of, if you're going to sit down with the kids and watch a movie, so you're going to stick Disney on or whatever it's going to be, what's your sort of snack of choice?
And there's always popcorn for me.
Salted or butter? Or sugar?
Sugar for me.
Sweet.
Not very healthy style, but I can afford it.
Yeah, why not? We're allowed treats, right? Especially during COVID. It's a way of cheering each other up, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Shaowei He, thank you so much for coming on the show. For everybody,
so pleased talking to you.
Yeah, for everybody watching this and listening to it, we're going to make sure we leave a number of links in the show notes so that you can obviously contact Shaowei, obviously connect with the university that is part of, and certainly from a sort of commerciality perspective and talking about relations between China, the UK, but also just international business full stop. Shaowei clearly is a man to talk to, as is his colleague Adrian Price, who I said was interviewed on the show a couple of episodes ago. So Shaowei, thank you so much for being a good sport and coming on at short notice. And obviously look forward to eventually at some point meeting you in real life alongside Adrian and everyone else we've been interviewing. And I will be speaking to Pim literally in a few hours time for a quiz that we do, which by the way you're invited to if you'd like to join, and I will give him a little kick to see what's going on with the whole China conversation, because quite clearly it needs to be a bit louder.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Shaowei, pleasure meeting you.
Great pleasure to talk to you.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.